Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Two 17-year-olds are among the many people arrested so far in the investigation of a series of attacks on teenagers by other teens and young adults in the Southeast Valley. For an update on the so-called Gilbert Goons attacks, we welcome Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. Good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Give me better numbers here. How many arrests have been made? How many people have been charged?
Thanks for having me, by the way. We have right now charged 13 adults and 6 juveniles with crimes that are related to those types of offenses in the Southeast Valley.
Two 17-year-olds are among those charged, and they are being charged as adults. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, under the law, we have the ability to within our discretion, file as adults. And if they're close enough to their 18th birthday or it's a serious offense, we usually opt to do that.
Are they being detained at juvenile facilities? Are they being detained at adult facilities?
When they're charged as an adult, they're kept in a separate area of the adult facility so that they're not with the adult population.
Preston Lord homicide. Mm-hmm. Are these arrests in conjunction with that?
These are arrests that kind of stemmed from that investigation into just the general violence by groups out in the Southeast Valley.
So no arrests so far for Preston Lord homicide?
That's correct.
Why?
Because we are still finishing up the final parts of the investigation. My office has met with Queen Creek PD as well as the Gilbert Police Department so that we're all on the same page. There's a few things that need to be cleared up, but we are moving swiftly in the direction of charging people.
Would you say you are close to getting charges?
I would say we are close.
Any of the other arrests and charges linked to the Preston Lord homicide?
They may be linked in terms of providing information about associations or motivations, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's. I think you've called it lining up the ducks as far
Mm-hmm.
as Preston Lord is concerned. For those who feel frustrated and say they want to see movement, they want to see something going on there, this has happened, this story has been front page news for quite a while, what do you tell them?
You know, I get the frustration. It's something that people see every day when they watch the news. What I can say is that we are keeping the family updated as we go along. They know exactly what we're doing, exactly where we are. And as you know, they issued a statement a couple of weeks ago saying, you know, we're exercising patience. We would ask the community and media to do the same. And I think that's born out of their greater understanding of what's going on in the case.
All right, so again, we should look for something relatively soon on the homicide.
Yes.
Once the homicide charge comes, or charges come, will there be more in terms of this investigation?
You know, we're not going to stop just because we got through that case. I mean, there are a number of other cases, as you pointed out, that have been submitted to our office, and we're looking at each one of them. Not just cases, but individuals involved in each of the cases.
Last question on this, because I want to get to other things, but there are people who think that what's going on out there has been covered up, that some big names have been protected, and that's why it's been slow-rolled in a variety of ways by a variety of offices. How do you respond to that?
I have seen absolutely no evidence of that. I've seen people working very hard. This is a difficult case. The Preston Lord case in and of itself involves a multitude of witnesses. We're combing through all of the video. We have to find people that can substantiate that video is accurate. Some people have not wanted to cooperate. It takes time.
Okay. Charles Ryan, ex-prison chief, sentenced 2 years probation for what happened was a standoff. SWAT teams were involved, pointing a gun at officers. 2 years probation. What's that all about?
Well, as you know, to charge somebody with aggravated assault, you have to show that the person intended to put people in fear using a weapon. I looked at all of the medical records in this case, as well as all of the body-worn camera footage in this case. And what I saw was an individual who was very intoxicated, who had taken Ambien on top of that intoxication to the point where what caused the police to respond to that house was he shot his sink. So this is an individual who had a gun in his hand, yes, but there was no indication that he intended to put anybody in fear for their lives. And so based on that, we charged appropriately, which is disorderly conduct involving a weapon.
But for those, again, who would look at that and say, Ex-prison chief, again, pointing weapons at officers, refusing to put the weapon down, standoff, armored vehicle, SWAT team, the whole 9 yards, whether it's alcohol, Ambien, or anything else. I think it's understandable to wonder if it happened to me, if I did that, would I get the same treatment?
You would. And actually, he didn't refuse to put the weapon down. They yelled at him to put the weapon down, and you can actually see in the video him putting the weapon down right before they deploy beanbag munitions at him. So yes, we're going to look at the case. I, as a county attorney, I don't care who the person is. I care what they did and what the law allows. That's what I looked at, and based on that, he committed a disorderly conduct.
So the fact of who he was, his history did not come into play as far as sentencing is
Correct.
concerned. Tempe Forensics Unit, I want to talk about that for a second here. I know there's not much you can do about this, but it could influence some cases coming across your desk here. Your thoughts on, could some of these cases now be compromised by what looks like a messy scene there at Tempe Forensics?
You know, anytime that there's an issue about the forensics, we're concerned how it might impact a case. So one of the first things that we did when we found out about the situation was we notified the defense bar to let them know what was going on. And so as the cases were examined and there were a few issues found, we disclosed those to the defense. And then we also went back and looked at our cases to see, does that in and of itself compromise the case? We haven't had that yet, but we're continuing to go through that process.
I was going to ask, so you've reviewed the cases to a certain extent, but you are still reviewing some of these cases.
Yes, and as we get more information, we're going to be disclosing it to the defense as quickly as we get it.
How much does dysfunction like that, how much could it impact a court case? Because we're already seeing some defense attorneys saying, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, certainly they're going to argue that as the defense, when we're going to give them whatever information we have about that. But, you know, as you know, most cases don't rest on one single piece of evidence. And so whether that is going to impact a whole case, that remains to be seen. But we're going to evaluate each case and the impact that is had on that.
And there is some concern that you got to look at these things.
We have
There
to
is
look
some
at it.
concern.
Yeah, and we're going to.
One last point. There was an arrest, I believe, today regarding an assault in Surprise at a McDonald's. And this case is making national news because the suspect apparently has been bragging about doing these kinds of things all over the country. What's going on here?
Well, he received his initial appearance here yesterday. My attorneys showed up at court. We got him held without bond. And as I have to say, charges are not evidence. People are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But what we're looking at him for is an attack in Phoenix. And also one in Surprise, both of females. And then, of course, he's made statements to indicate that he's also done things in other states, such as New York.
Will extradition be involved here? I think New York wants him back. Will extradition be involved?
New York wants him back, but we're going to keep him here for now. He's being held without bond, and I'm not sure that would be the case in New York, so we're going to go first here.
Interesting. All right, so is that common practice to where the arresting point, you get first order of business here?
When you have comparable charges or, serious charges, yes, that's very common.
All right, Rachel Mitchell, Maricopa County Attorney. We'll keep an eye on that Gilbert Goons case. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.